Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about 3 coffee basics. So I realize we've done a lot of videos about some other parts of coffee, things like recipes, AeroPresses, all kinds of other stuff, but I've never talked about the basics. And being that, we do a lot of coffee, we sell coffee, I figured I want to set everyone up for success, really, to be able to make their best cup, whether they're making it with a regular coffee pot or they're trying to do some real specialty brew. Now, getting these 3 basics down will probably do the most for your coffee over anything else. There's 3 things we're going to go over. We're going to go over the types of roast themselves and what each one is, and then we're going to go over water, what you should be using, and what happens when you use different waters. And then we're going to go over ratios. I believe these are the staples to water, and if getting these 3 things right will set you up for success no matter what type of cup of coffee you're making. Alright, starting out with number 1, the coffee roasts. Now there are 3 main types of roasts. You have your dark roasts, right? You have your medium roast, and you have your light roasts. Each of them all tastes really different, and then they're going to even have different caffeine content. So if you're someone who just needs a ton of caffeine, stick with your lighter roast. They have more caffeine in them just because of the way they're roasted. Their flavor profiles are also a lot different. So those are going to be a little bit more floral, some of the more brighter fruits, things like that. They'll just taste a lot more, bright. Then you're going to get into those medium roasts. Now, those are my personal favorite. You tend to, get a nice balance of some really rich fruitiness and some chocolates in there. A lot more of those real sweeter, richer flavors in my opinion. And then you're gonna have those darker roasts. Now, it was a common misconception. I would hear a lot that, really dark coffees have a lot of caffeine. It's not quite it. This one actually has the least amount of caffeine, and it tastes a lot more earthy, nutty. You're gonna get a lot more of those darker chocolate flavors in there. It's probably your boldest cup and probably the most bold flavor profile. Usually I find those a little bit harder to drink black. That's just my opinion though. So really the trick here is going to be going out to the store, buying different ones, trying different ones. It's going to be a lot of trial and error. If you can get sample bags, that'd be great. The local HEB here, they have tons of coffee. Okay, I just had to go pick up our coffee right now, but usually most coffee you buy will have like a label on it, right? And then that will usually explain the coffee notes, so about what it tastes like. For example, ours is chocolate and berries, right? Or it'll kind of say medium, light, or dark. Most coffee is actually going to have that, so you can take a look at that and start from there. If it has a roast date, even better, because then you know how fresh it is. But it makes it really fun, trying a lot of coffee, seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like, and then really nailing down what to make something really enjoyable for you. Who knows, it might completely change your mornings. You might want coffee even more once you find something you really love. People are usually used to just sticking with Folgers or something like that. And I promise you, there's way better options out there. Okay, now the next one, water. Now, you might think, okay, well, why does water matter? I know I need water for coffee. Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people use tap water for their coffee. Maybe in some places you're fine to do that, but at least I know here where we're at in South Texas, our water is super hard. Not only that, it has a lot of chlorine in it. You can smell it, you can taste it. It's not pleasant to drink by itself to begin with. Now add that into your coffee, just tons of minerals and stuff. You get this really sludgy, gross coffee. And so I can bet just changing that alone will already do a massive difference for your coffee. So my personal favorite is actually using something simple like spring water. You can get super scientific on it, and we're not going to get into that now. I want to make this as simple as possible. I know some people prefer to use distilled water. Now, I like spring water a little more because it has some of those natural minerals in there from the spring, just to kind of help bring out some of that flavor a little more. Distilled water is going to have a little bit different taste too. I feel just getting spring water is probably going to give you the best all-around coffee. And it's really easy to go ahead and buy 3 gallons of it, stuff like that. You can just set it aside for your coffee. But I promise you, using spring water or even distilled water instead of regular tap water is going to make a life-changing difference on the way your coffee tastes. Now, lastly, ratios. Now, why is this important? I've grown up and I still see people just eyeball scoop a ton of coffee in there, slap a ton of water inside a coffee maker, and then call it a day, let it brew. Now, the reason why this isn't good is because you're going to usually have one of two things happen. You can get lucky and actually have the coffee come out tasting good, or you're going to have too little coffee, too much water, and then it's going to be a real light, and then it's going to taste real watered down, not pleasant to drink at all. Or you're going to have too much coffee and too little water. In this scenario, the coffee is going to be overbearing, really, really strong in that sense. It's also a tough one to drink. You want to find that nice sweet spot, and that's where ratios come in. A pretty common ratio for drip coffee, so things like your coffee makers or doing pour over, anywhere from 1 to 15 to 1 to 17 ratio. What the heck does that mean? So this is going to be every 1 gram of coffee, you're going to do 17 grams of water. Okay, now you might get a little, you say, okay, that's too much math. Yes, initially it is a little bit more math and playing around. Now, I feel it's really fun to be able to experiment and do some of these things and figure out how do you like it to taste. Now, think about it. You're gonna do this little bit of work, then once you get it right, you set it and you forget it. You can get a scale, you do whatever you need to do to make it pretty easy. I've already kind of nailed it down for myself, so I know what ratios I like using whenever I'm making different types of coffee. So, for example, the AeroPress, we did a recipe. I showed a recipe on it a few, like 2 videos back, I think, whenever I was reviewing the AeroPress Go. I can link that. And that recipe called for 32 grams of coffee. So all I gotta do is place it on the scale, pour it in there, call it a day. I know how much coffee I have. Once you start doing the math of water, then you already know how much water you're gonna be filling up in there. Getting a scale is actually gonna be a lifesaver. Now, different types of coffee or different types of brew methods call for different ratios. So if you're in a French press, it'll call for one thing. Doing a pour over, it might call for something else. I find it's pretty often to see something around 115, 1 to 17 for everything. So that might be a good base to start if you're trying to start easy. Okay, that's it. So those are the three basics. So we had our coffee types. Remember, we had our medium, dark, and light roast. And we had our water, talking about how not to use tap water to spring water. And then we have our ratios. Now, if you nail these 3 things, you start to really experiment and figure these out, you're going to start to notice a massive difference in the way your coffee's tasting. I'd imagine it'll be easier for you to go ahead and start using less and less creamer, attempt to drink it black once you find a nice bean you like. All these things come to play, if you compare just a regular pot of coffee someone just put in tap water and ratio it out, and then compare something who actually did all those steps, the taste is very, very different. No, not everyone loves black coffee, and I do love black coffee, but for those who don't, the goal here is to be able to get you to drink coffee with some milk or creamer, and not creamer and milk with a splash of coffee. I want you to be able to taste those flavor profiles, and once you start to enjoy it more, you'll have a little bit more fun with it. Probably be able to get a little more caffeine out of it and be healthier too. Anyways, that's a short and sweet one today. I just wanted to do a nice little video to start things off this year. Like it, share it if you want to pass this information on to someone else who's been drinking coffee, if I remember, anything like that. Anyways, I'm done now, and I'm going to finish my cup and get back to work. Later, guys.